Good morning. Let us rejoice and be glad, for this is the day that God has made. Let's stand and sing together.
We gather together to ask the Lord's blessing. He chastens and hastens his will to make known the wicked oppressing. Now cease from distressing, sing praises to his name. He forgets not his own. Beside us to guide us, our God with us joining, ordaining, maintaining his kingdom divine. So from the beginning, the fight we were winning, the Lord wast at our side. Oh, glory be thine. We all do extol thee, thou leader triumphant, and pray that thou still our defender wilt be. Thy congregation escape tribulation, thy name be ever praised. O Lord, make us free.
A lot going on this week. I want to share with you some of our information, beginning today with the crop walk, a luncheon at 12:15, and then the crop walk. And if you are signed up for that, Joan is going to have a luncheon for us, and then we'll be walking together on this beautiful fall day. Tomorrow is a council meeting, and those are open to the congregation. If you would like to make a comment, then talk to Marilyn Clark, and she will put you on the agenda if you're not a part of the council. Tuesday is our pasta dinner and our social justice forum, and we're going to have Pastor Lemuel, last name Brown, from Bethel Baptist across the railroad tracks, and he's going to be speaking about the contributions of the African American churches in Ridgewood, and as a context for our continuing discussions on race and justice. So that's Tuesday. Cultures and Friendship, Wednesday at 10:30. And then the Oktoberfest is Saturday. I don't see Wally here, but I'm sure that if you would like to go to that, he's around somewhere. He can sell you a ticket today. I'll speak for him. And I want you to remember November 4th at 4 o'clock. We're having a concert here. It's going to be a wonderful concert. This is an opportunity for the community to come and share in this celebration, with a special emphasis on hurricane relief. And John has put together a great program. So maybe, would you just tell us a little bit about what's going to go on November 4th at 4 o'clock?
Yeah, we have a great group of young artists and professionals coming in to perform. We have some of our regulars like Donna Vivino will be singing, and George will be performing. Eddie Pendergraph, you probably remember him. He's been here many times, along with another Broadway artist who are going to be coming down. In addition to that, we have some young groups. We have a choir from Teaneck High School coming in. to perform. We have some students from Fairlawn High School also performing on piano and viola, as well as vocal performances. The Tri-State Brass Society, who's performed here on a couple of occasions. You remember that brass quintet group. They're going to be performing. So we have a lot of really great artists going to be performing, and that should be a fun night. So hope to see you all there.
Great. And then we'll have a nice reception following. So November 4th at 4 o'clock. I'm looking to you to bring your friends and family and people from the community. Let's fill this place up. And then we'll take a love offering, and all of the proceeds will go to American Baptist One Great Hour of Sharing for hurricane relief. So remember that one. Frank, would you lead us? Thank you.
Please join me in the responsive reading as printed in your bulletin. We come to church this morning seeking healing in our lives, healing of physical and mental illness, healing of painful memories, healing of broken relationships. O God, we pray that upon leaving this place this morning, we may have experienced insight into our need for your love. The scripture reading for this morning is from Genesis chapter 27, verses 25 through 34. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and of earth's richness and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am his son," he answered, "your firstborn, Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's word, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, me too, my father."
The words for the next chorus are up on the screen. We're going to sing it 3 times.
We pray today we can be mindful of all of the folks that are continuing to try to recover from the weather. Hurricanes, of course, I was in Florida last week, and the Keys are still pretty much devastated. And they're trying to get their economy going again. They've opened the road down to Key West because, as you know, tourism is their lifeblood. So they need to have people going down there, but it's still a disaster. So pray for them, the people of Houston. Santa Rosa, California, my home for several years. and parts of the neighborhood I lived in are dust and ashes right now. 40 plus people are dead, hundreds missing. It's just, for that, even for that part of the state, it's really beyond comprehension, the level of devastation and the fires that are still out of control as I speak. So we can pray for those folks. I want to remember Ann McKay, who's in Christian Healthcare Center now. Had a little bit of a setback with her knee, but getting good attention. And Ken Franz is in Van Dyke's Center. If anyone would like to drop a note or stop in and see those folks, I'm sure they would appreciate it. Maybe there's someone you'd like to mention, a particular concern today you'd like to share. Anyone have a name for us? You'd just like to, feel free to speak out right where you're seated. Bob. All right. And now the bad news. The bad news, Bob has been just an outstanding volunteer for a long time here. So I'm sure we'll get as much as we can out of him, but I'm just thankful that I want to hear more about that after the service. So anyone else? Yes. Annie? Pardon me? Interview. Okay, we'll pray for you. Pray for Annie. Christopher? Anyone else? Thank you. Pray for Steve and his new job and his health. Brent. Give thanks for John and pray for him. Pray for our own congregation. We'll have a moment of silence and then we can share together in the Lord's Prayer. I'd like to kneel today as a sign of reverence and as a sign of solidarity for all those who suffer from racism, oppression, discrimination, injustice, and for those who have the courage to give voice, to speak truth to power. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, thank you for the beauty of this day, for the life and breath that we share, for our church family, for the service and ministry you've entrusted to us in this place at this time. We're mindful of those around us, around our community, our country, and our world who have so little, who are under heavy burdens of suffering and oppression, war and injustice. We simply take a moment and quiet our hearts and minds and pray that the peace of God, the shalom of God, the joy of the Lord and the justice of the Almighty would pervade our community, our world, our own hearts. Let us be peace. Let us walk in peace. Let us breathe peace. Let us work for peace. Thank you for sustaining us for another day, another week, for all the gifts of grace, for the warm beds that we sleep in, the food that we eat, the friendships that we enjoy, the compassion that we benefit from. Teach us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. This time our ushers will receive our morning tithes and offerings. A few weeks ago, we had what we called a pet blessing in conjunction with the adoption at the vets a few weeks ago, and it was a wonderful time, second year we've done it. The highlight of that day for me was the fact that one beautiful little dog was named after the church. Did I tell you that story? It was really neat. A young couple brought their little dog in, and never had a dog before, their first dog, and so we had getting ready to do the blessing and had the certificate there, and as I filled out the certificate, I asked, well, what is the name of the dog? And they hadn't figured that out yet, and so she said, well, I have a name, but he doesn't like it. And he said, I have a name, but she doesn't like it. I said, you know what? We're just going to do the blessing. We'll leave the name blank. And I guarantee you, by the time you get home, you will have decided on a name. So I filled out the certificate, handed it to her, and she said, Emmanuel, is that the name of your church? I said, yeah, that is the name of the church. What does that mean? I said, it means something like God with us. And they both said, we really like that name, Emmanuel. We're going to name our new puppy Emmanuel. I said, oh, how neat. You can call him Manny. No, we're not going to call him Manny. It's Emmanuel. And they walked away, and I filled out the certificate, Emmanuel. So somewhere out there in the ethers is a beautiful little puppy named Emmanuel, named after our church. But what I found is people not only wanted their pets blessed, they wanted to be blessed. And you know, I've done blessings for many, many years, thousands of blessings. I blessed wedding couples. I blessed houses. I blessed babies. I blessed animals. I'll bless anything. But really, the blessing is as much about blessing the owners of the pets, or the owners of the home, or the parents of the baby, as it is about that particular thing that's being blessed. And it's a beautiful thing. And I've done it for so many years and believed in it, but I've never really understood the miracle and power of blessing until the last few years. And I've been thinking about this a lot in the last weeks. And I thought about one of my mentors who's long dead. His name was Dr. Morris Berkowitz, who actually wrote a little book called The Miracle and Power of Blessing. Morris was an unusual guy, a Church of God minister, a pastor, a conference leader, an author, just a remarkable guy. And he, in his later life, also discovered the miracle and power of blessing. And it started when he was in about his 30s. He was getting well known in the Church of God, leading conferences all over the world. And he had an opportunity to kind of be the opening act at a conference for a guy named E. Stanley Jones. Any of you know that name? A wonderful, he was one of those people I never met but wish I had. His books greatly influenced me in my ministry. The Christ of the Indian Road, Abundant Living, and many other beautiful little devotional books still worth reading. And at that time, he was a very famous guy. And there were 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 people gathered to hear Dr. E. Stanley Jones, and so Morris was the opening act. And he gave a wonderful talk, and then E. Stanley Jones came on. And it's kind of like when you go to a concert, you have the big act, and you have to kind of tolerate sitting through the opening act. But it's a big deal for the guy that's opening. So anyway, after the conference that session had concluded, everyone came up to Dr. Jones in throngs. They all wanted his autograph. They wanted to touch him, be near him, speak to him. People lined up out the door waiting for a moment with E. Stanley Jones. But you know, no one bothered with Morris Berkowitz. No one wanted to talk to him. No one wanted his autograph. He was just kind of an aside. But something happened. This little lady with this big flowered hat came up to him and said, "Oh, Brother Berquist, your talk was such a blessing. I was so blessed by hearing you. I know that God is going to bless you and make your ministry a blessing to people all over the world for your whole lifetime. God bless you, Brother Berquist." And he walked out of there, and his heart was kind of strangely warmed, and he felt so much better. He felt so good. And this little lady in the colored hat disappeared. And he talked to some of his friends later, and he said, "Something really strange happened, and it made me feel really good. This little lady in this colored hat came up and just blessed me left and right." And somebody said, "Oh, that's Mother Perry. Mother Perry, they call her. Mother Perry goes around and she blesses everything and everybody. That's what she does. That's Mother Perry." And right then, Morris Berquist realized the miracle and the power of blessing. And I wanted to share with you a story out of the book of Genesis, the one that Frank so beautifully read, Genesis chapter 27. Isaac blessing his son Jacob. Now, the part of the story I don't want to focus on today is the fact that Jacob stole the blessing from his twin brother Esau. I'm not going to go there today. In fact, this story is really not a story about personal ethics. But the fact is, there were these twin brothers, you know the story, almost twin. One had a little more body hair on him than the other, the first twin. And I thought about that because my mother, and this might be an apocryphal story, but my mother and father always told me when I was born I had hair all over my body. Maybe that's why, maybe I was so ugly they didn't take any baby pictures. I never seen a baby picture, but the elder brother, the one who came out first, the one who came out of the chute first was the hairy one, and then the second brother, Jacob, came out. Jacob literally meaning heel grabber, because he came out grabbing the heel of his elder brother. And of course, in biblical times, it was the older son who got the blessing and the inheritance. So second place wasn't a good place to be. So it was time for the blessing, and the younger brother, Jacob, disguised himself and deceived his father, who was on his deathbed then, ready to give the blessing to his older son. His eyes were so bad he couldn't distinguish between the two, and Jacob deceived his father, stole the blessing. And that's the story that we read earlier. And the story goes on from there. You shall be blessed, and you shall be the father of a great nation. And that's the story of the blessing of Jacob. So let's forget about the ethical dimension of this, and let's focus on what it means to be blessed and to be a blessing. First of all, blessing involves meaningful touch. And Isaac reached out and laid his hands upon Jacob, and he blessed him. Meaningful touch. You know, there's a tradition in the church called the laying on of hands. When one is prayed for, maybe one is anointed with oil, the prayer of faith is offered, the laying on of hands. It has to do with human touch. Human touch is a special thing. Whether we're talking about it in a religious context, or whether one is a massage therapist, or a doctor, or a mother tending to her sick child, There's a power in human touch. And I'm telling you, some people are gifted with this. I'm not particularly gifted, but someone who's very close to me is. That's my wife, Connie, is gifted with the power of healing touch. But it's something that all of us, whether we're especially gifted, whether we're ordained, it doesn't matter. There's something powerful about compassionate, tender human touch. Whether it's a handshake or a hug or a gentle hand on the shoulder. And Jesus demonstrated that. He gathered the little children, put them on his lap, and he touched them, and he blessed them. Something very powerful about that kind of tender, compassionate human touch. Just as there's something very destructive about touch, human touch, when it's inappropriate. And we've been seeing that in the news this week, haven't we? Powerful men inappropriately touching vulnerable women. And the good news is we're finally starting to be sensitized a little bit about sexism and abuse and things like racism. That's the silver lining in this dark cloud that's been over us for the past week. But blessing involves meaningful touch. Secondly, blessing involves words of love and affirmation and affection. You know, there's a very beautiful psalm, Psalm 39. It says that our words can heal and comfort, or they can damage and wound like the thrust of a sword. There's a tremendous power as we use our words to bless people, to affirm people, to express appreciation and affirmation. It's blessing instead of cursing. It's naming someone in a positive way, not naming and shaming, not degrading, not using terms of derision and humiliation like Crooked Hillary or Lying Ted or Little Marco. We don't want that kind of naming and shaming. We want words which heal, which elevate, which inspire. These are words of blessing. Words of derision, words which demean people and debilitate people, can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You see it with parents and their children. Oh, you're just a loser. You're stupid. You're a stupid kid. You're a quitter. You're never going to amount to anything. And parents who don't know what that means dispense that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy to their children, and that's what they can become. There's something very powerful when people put that kind of a curse on us. Even as adults, even if someone does that to us, and we know in our heart that that's not true, there's something about it that stays with us. Just as there's something very powerfully positive about the affirming, encouraging words of someone who tells us that our life is bigger than we are, that we're persons of worth, that we have a future, that we have gifts, that we have value. I remember when I began my studies in Bible and religion, I had transferred from a state college in California. I was studying criminal justice. I was a good student. I was always a serious student. After the first year or two, I wasn't so serious. After that, I got very serious. And I worked very hard. Maybe not the sharpest pencil in the box, but I worked very hard and often got the best grades. So I transferred up to a small liberal arts college in Portland, Oregon, began studying religion, took all of the upper division religion courses at the same time because I wanted to graduate. I also worked 30 or 40 hours a week to support myself, so I was a very busy guy. worked hard, but I was struggling because I was in groups with students who had been doing this for 3 or 4 or 5 years. They knew all the language, all the literature, and when you study theology, you really have to learn a whole new vocabulary. Soteriology, eschatology, and I was struggling to learn the vocabulary and throw a little Greek and Hebrew in on top of that, which didn't come naturally to me. And so I went to my advisor, a great guy. His name was Richard Craighead, Dr. Craighead, Christian educator, theologian. We also struck a chord because he had a car that he would take out to the drag racetrack and race on the weekends. That was a little bonus for me because I was a car guy. And I said, Dr. Craighead, I said, this is tough stuff for me. I'm kind of struggling here. What should I do? He goes, you'll be fine. Just stay with it. He said, you're going to graduate in a year. And he said, then you'll probably want to go on and get your master's degree, your MDiv. And then after you do that, I can see you doing a doctorate somewhere. And I thought, I'm trying to get through this course in systematic theology, and you're telling me that I'm going to have to go complete a doctorate somewhere out there. But you know what? That became kind of a prophecy for me. Someone who believed in me and believed for me and saw something in me, maybe that I couldn't see in myself at that moment. It's a very powerful thing. Blessing involves words of affirmation, love, affection, encouragement. And so when Isaac blessed Jacob, whether he did it for the right reasons or not, Jacob was blessed. Jacob wasn't just a thief or a deceiver. He wasn't just the heel grabber. Through that blessing, he realized he was a person of worth who had a future, and God was going to use him in a very unusual way. Very powerful thing, those words of blessing. So blessing involves meaningful touch, words of affirmation and affection. And finally, blessing is age neutral and comes without a price tag. Let me tell you something. You're never too young. You're never too old to either receive or to dispense a blessing. So it's for everybody in this room. Doesn't matter what your IQ is. Doesn't matter if you're a cleric. Doesn't matter if you're 10 or 80 or 85. It's age neutral. I thought about this because one of the things I did, and I have a few folks when I go to Florida that I visit, that I keep connected with. One is this very beautiful lady that I've known for a long time now, and she's in an assisted living center. Her name is Edith. Edith is a very bright light, a very beautiful soul. Edith is now 98. She just turned 98. Mind as sharp as a tack. She's still a spitfire. Still walks around in her walker. And I visited with her primarily because we wanted to talk. She wanted to talk about her service, her memorial service. Because she's the kind of person that likes to have all her ducks in a row. We got all the information down, all her favorite hymns, the scriptures that we'll read, etc., etc. And she's in a lovely place, very, very, very clean. The caregivers are very friendly and capable people. And we spent a few hours in her room that has like a little efficiency apartment. And she said, Pastor Ken, she said, I don't want to die, but I'm kind of done living. I kind of like that. I don't want to die, but I've had a full life. I've kind of done living. And I liked it, but I sensed in that a little bit of a hint of despair or depression. And I said, Edith, I understand. You're 98 years old. You still have a measure of health. You know you're on that slow decline. But I said, I really want to be here when you celebrate 100. And I said, this is what I see for you in this place. And this is true. Edith has a gift of blessing people. Because when you're with Edith, after you've left, you feel better about yourself and about life. And I said, Edith, I don't care if you're 98 or 108, you still have the gift. You're in this place with these people. Go ahead and bless them and be a blessing. Being a blessing and giving a blessing is age neutral. And it comes without a price tag. Anybody can do it, and anybody can receive it. I was thinking about that too because I was with my son, my older son, in the park with my granddaughter. And around this particular park, there's an area where many of the homeless men in Bradenton kind of hang out, homeless men and women. And they don't bother anybody. They just sit in the shade under the trees and watch the children play. And my older son actually served for several years as the sexton at a large downtown church in Bradenton, Florida. As much as there is a downtown in Bradenton, Florida, he worked there at this downtown church. And this particular church was very open and compassionate toward the homeless community. They allowed them to sleep there. They fed them several days a week. They had a real outreach ministry to the homeless. And my son was a key player in that outreach ministry. I can go around Bradenton, Florida, and my older son knows almost every homeless person by first name. He's just got this heart for people and this non-judgment. And they recognize this in my son. So we were in the playground with my granddaughter, and my son looked over at one of the homeless men, and he said, "Hey, John, how you doing, buddy?" "Oh, not bad, Adam. How are you?" "I'm doing okay." "Well, you have a good day now." It was such a beautiful moment. I could tell by looking at that man's eyes that made his day, that someone made a human connection with him. Because many times when we see homeless people, we don't want to make eye contact. We don't want to make a connection because we're afraid they're going to ask us for something or demand something. But that's all he wanted and needed. And without using any kind of religious language, my son offered a blessing. Didn't cost him anything. Didn't cost that homeless man anything. There it was. Something we can do anytime for anyone. We all have the right and the birthright to receive the blessing, to give the blessing. We have the privilege and power to offer it. And it comes with no price tag. That's a blessing. It involves the touch, the words of affection. It's age neutral, and it's ours for the taking. So I may talk about this a little bit more next week too, but as I close today, I'd like to offer you a blessing, not because there's anything magical about it. I mean, I'm not especially gifted to offer it, but I come with that intention today. If anyone would like to come forward and receive a blessing, I do have some oil. Again, nothing magical about it. It's just anointing oil, and I can just anoint you and ask God to bless you. You don't have to explain anything to me or ask for anything. You just receive it if that's what you want and need today. And Madeline is going to sing this beautiful song that most of us know. It is well with my soul. And that's how I would like you to leave this place feeling today, that it's well with your soul. Because our souls get troubled and weary, don't they? So, God bless you.
the peace that